Yo, yo, what's up, good people? It's the boys from the PGZ, the Fat and Geek Zone, back at it once more. This time around, we're bringing you our review of Wonder Woman 84. And this is, of course, part of our DCEU recap.
Yep.
And yeah, man, as usual, I'm Izzy.
I'm Riyaal.
And let's just get right to it, man. Wonder Woman, right? Look, this is a sequel. And our second sequel overall, especially with our recap series. We've done the Iron Man sequel.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Okay.
so
yeah.
I think this
just
is now the
yeah.
second time we're doing a sequel. You know, thus far. Obviously, there's many more to come down the line.
Oh, too many sometimes. Some might say. But anyways.
With that said, did they bring it, man, as far as the sequel is concerned? Before we get some of the more specifics and whatever, given how great that first Wonder Woman was, I mean, yeah, it's by far, you know, not only our favorite review that we've done, but just in terms of the comic book movies that have been delivered. That was such an amazing one.
Really good. I think it was the first, strong female character, female lead, or female superhero.
In this new iteration, because, you know, I mean, if you go back at some point, there's like, you know, there's a Catwoman here, there's this, you know,
but you know, there's
somebody
actually got the shine they deserve.
No. As far as just, making a great movie that stars a female, you know, comic character, this was definitely the one. And even that aside, as a movie on its own merits, you know, other merits rather, it knocked it straight.
Wonder Woman 1, right?
Wonder Woman 1.
Okay, just making sure.
They knocked it out of the park, you know. So my question becomes, did they deliver on the sequel, or did they fall into the, you know, the dreaded sophomore slump?
2 letters sounds like no. No, they Wonder Woman 84. Yeah, probably one of the poorer sequels I've seen across movies in general.
Yeah.
Multitude of reasons.
Yeah.
For me, I always say this is one I always talk about is, does the movie feel long?
Yeah.
Yes, it did. Is it long? Yes. And that's never a good combination.
Yeah.
That means either you've added in too much stuff in there, or, you know, the story isn't flowing well, which I think that also was an issue they suffered from. And are you pandering to the crowd, which I think at this time DCEU was obviously on the downward trajectory, so they're trying, you know, as a last little punch into the system to try, you know, go down swinging. That's the word, that's a phrase I'm looking for. So as a sequel, I think it's probably the worst superhero sequel I've seen. Cinematography was fine. You know, there were bits and elements that were fine. The actors and actresses were good. They're all good, you know, Hollywood staples, but they didn't bring it. I think for me, the one is there's just too much fluff in that movie.
Yeah, it was damn near all fluff.
Yeah.
I'm trying to let you cook, but it's like you with damn near every sentence, like fluff. You're basically poking at me,
I mean, we've chatted about this a number of times, but I think on this watch, I skipped the first 20 minutes and I didn't miss anything, and I didn't lose any sleep over it.
Yeah.
And the reason being is we've tried this review before. Speak behind the curtain before. We've done this before, so we're doing it again. And because we're doing it again, I know what to kind of skip out, and I skipped that first 20 minutes, which I don't understand what they were trying to get at there at all. I don't know if they were trying to set the scene, trying to set the morality of the movie or the tone, but I skipped it, didn't miss anything.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about it. If it tried what it was trying to get at.
Yeah, I actually did. I think all the times I've watched it. So, you know, again, you know when they talk about like technical difficulties and all that, trust me, we've experienced our fair share of this throughout. I mean, you know, this thing has been going on for the better part of like maybe 2 years or so now. And this is one of the movies where And of all movies for us to get punished with having to watch again and again, it just had to be one of our worst, if not our worst one thus far. But anyway, we're giving you yet another go, and each time is almost more painful than the last, because the things we've touched on already, as far as there's so much fluff, so many unnecessary things, it's a little incoherent and weird, it doesn't make much sense. You get to get an even closer look at those things, and they get re-emphasized instead of where sometimes you are like, oh, now I understand this thing and maybe change my opinion on it, And to your question, as far as the beginning of it, I also definitely skipped it this time around and watching again. But because I know exactly what happens in the scene, so this is the beginning where they had a little race, that whole athletics thing that they were doing. The point of that scene was to highlight the lesson for Diana that don't take shortcuts, it's not worthwhile. But it was the most stupidest way of portraying that lesson, number one. Number two, this is not the first movie. Look, there's not an infinite, but there's a number of ways, right, to tell a story. Even within the comic book world, it's not that restricted and limited. We've seen the stories cross many styles and genres. I mean, one that we talk about so many times is the Christopher Nolan way, instead of doing a superhero style movie, he did a crime film, with superhero characters. Yeah. There's, whether it's a fish out of water story, there's so many other things, but at its most basic, the superhero story is always centered around the person with the powers. You give their background and then you get into them with their powers and the struggle that they face going forward. That's like the long and short of it. And then you choose whatever style to portray that in.
That's interesting, yeah.
That's the origin story. That's, origin story 101. When it comes to sequels, or maybe before I move on to sequels, with that in mind, given the origin stories, there's maybe some flexibility where, let's say, duration and pacing is concerned, because you're trying to establish so many things at once. I focus just now on the superhero, the person with the powers, and whatever, but you're establishing their world, you're establishing the setting, you're establishing
how they got their powers,
so many things, the things that affect them, the world in which they live in.
Who are the antagonists?
Exactly, right? That gives some leeway in terms of the pacing, the duration, and so on. But when you get to the sequel, there's hardly anything to establish, guys. We understand a good amount of the world. There's obviously so much more to explore, and that's the point of sequels. But you don't have as much leeway to dilly-dally and take your time, be overly or unnecessarily long. You gotta just get to it. And that's one of the things that they failed in doing with this movie.
Yeah.
It dragged on for no reason. Like, look, if you introduce a new character, of course, it's a new setting, essentially. The first one is in World War I.
Yeah.
This is now in the 80s.
Yeah.
But, okay, we're in the 80s, cool. We don't need to spend time, look at the nostalgia, look at the costumes, look at all of the stuff, if it's not adding to the story. Because if you take the Wonder Woman 84 story, what about that says it has to take place in the 80s? Not a single thing as far as how they portrayed it. They could have found a way to make it make sense, but I didn't pick up on it. And if you're going to tell me it's because, they had an oil tycoon wannabe as the villain and oil was booming in those days, no.
But
No.
I mean, it's, as you were saying now as well, it's like, what kind of struggle did Diana have? There wasn't any struggle for her. She just happened into struggle because she made a wish.
Exactly, right?
If you want to go make a wish, go make a wish in the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Yes.
If anything, if that drag, so to speak, was focused on establishing the villain, because that's how impactful he's going to be, okay, we would have understood.
And his motivation was like just to get rich.
Exactly. So he wasn't a competitor, he's just a guy who wanted to get rich and
prove to his son, like the story to prove to his son, yes, that's something you can work on. But to get rich to prove to your son you're a man,
they didn't do enough about his story. Obviously it's more of a specific thing in relation to what is his name now?
Pascal.
The character, what's it?
Max Lord,
right? Like there wasn't much that they did properly there. But again, just to close off on the overarching story as far as why this for me is like the definition of a sophomore slump, is that just about every single decision that they made, I still find myself questioning, even after having watched it so many times. enough time for me to not ever want to watch this thing for a good 10 years at least. I was highly disappointed by that. And here's the thing that takes the disappointment to a whole other level. For the most part, you had the exact same people involved in this. Man. You had the same star. You had the same co-star. You had the same director. Not sure if the writer was the same or not, but for me, I can chalk it up to studio interference. I will say, studios sometimes get a little too much hate where studio interference is concerned because they are not given enough credit where their interference has led to the story becoming so much better. People only speak up if they got in the way, and not to mention, this is also at a time, when did this movie drop? Was it 2020?
2020, well,
early 2020.
2022, between.
Right? So, the first one came out in about 2017, and then Justice League and Batman vs Superman followed not too long after, within the next 2 years, which then of course didn't have the greatest of ratings. And so for DC, what that said to them is that, try and be like Marvel. Hence the lighter tone and...
Well, even the lighter tone, even the lighting. It was the setting was lighter.
As well, because again, they're trying to, highlight the whole Technicolor of the 80s, but it did not serve the story, so that was unnecessary. So now that all that you've established, you've completely abandoned. Yes, it's a different time period, but it has to be a similar tone that you follow. It only makes sense. If you're going to shift, make that make sense there.
Yeah.
But they absolutely failed on that. So I think it was a lot of just the behind the scenes drama that came through, especially if you, again, kind of sort of looking forward into the story. If you consider the fact that they announced the Wonder Woman 3 and then it ended up getting cancelled and there was a change of regime and, it shows the instability that happened behind the scenes, which unfortunately spilled over into the movie. But all of that being said, I think we can get into, some of the more specific elements as far as what we didn't like. I think let's start off with Chris Pine, right? He was an amazing feature of the first one, and he had great chemistry with Diana in the first movie.
Yeah.
What's your take on their relationship this time around?
Oh, I still think they had great chemistry in this one.
Yeah.
But obviously, that's not enough to save a movie. I kind of like, they went back to the well for me, kind of, you know what I mean? Like, they tried to do the same thing again, but it didn't work.
Yeah.
And you can see, even just how it was brought back, it was just a bit like, you possessed the body of somebody else.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And I guess Diana was like, all I see is you, which is pretty cool. That's like a, nice feel-good thing. That's pretty cool.
Touchy.
Yeah, all like beauty in the eye of beholder type situation. But yes, always gonna have good chemistry with Gal Gadot.
Yeah.
Didn't need to come back because it also, his death means less now.
Yeah.
And it was so emotive when he died in the first movie. And now, you brought him back. You basically, I'm shitting on one of my favorite series ever, but you're pulling a supernatural now. You don't want to commit to somebody dying.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to make it a love story, you could have made it a love story, but they didn't make it a love story. They didn't make it anything work. There's no specific genre you can box this into.
Yes.
It's just a generic superhero movie.
Like, man, yeah.
So his story, to bring him back, obviously it was cool to see him like a fish out of water. That was nice, just, figuring out style or just the wonder and excitement. That's always nice to see in a character. Liken it to maybe a Captain America.
Or even Diana in the first one.
Yeah, Diana in the first one. Flip the roles. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I genuinely didn't know where his place was in this movie.
Yeah.
In other characters, do you want to speak about Kristen Wiig?
Yeah, man. Kristen Wiig, I think I liked her casting. I just didn't like the portrayal. And again, I'm not sure if it's more a matter of, because look, you could have the same director come back, but doesn't necessarily mean they'll direct in the same manner, so to speak, based on whatever. If it's because Patty Jenkins was the director for these two movies, so I don't know if it's a matter of just her switching gears or again studio interference and the mess that they were dealing with. But either way, the portrayal of Kristen Wiig's character, aka Cheetah, I just didn't enjoy much.
So,
Nothing really made sense for me. And look, I understand the shy, awkward girl and whatever.
So like
but
that's what Kristen Wiig is good at. The shy, awkward thing.
But the way it just came through, like, I always say it's like a little high school arts and culture skit. Like, it was, oh, look at me, I'm so clumsy. And I'm like, what are these guys doing? So that for me was just so horrible. But look,
I didn't buy her as a supervillain.
That's the other thing, right? Because for me, I think I always want to emphasize with all the things I hate. Touching on what you mentioned earlier, Diana and Chris Pine are always going to have great chemistry, but you can't outdo bad writing, essentially.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of, just about everything and everyone in this movie suffered from, the bad writing. So I'll always come back to that in an attempt to shoot bail to the people involved. Because again, these are top tier actors. You've seen this.
Like if you look at his series or TV series,
this
IMDb is like
90 plus.
90 plus or something. Mm-hmm. He's a really good actor.
He's a proper dude. I mean, that's why he's having this, renaissance, so to speak, these last couple of years.
Has he even been having a renaissance? He's just been there.
Every time we see him,
top tier,
like ever since that Game of Thrones moment, he's taking it to the next level. Except for this movie. So that's why we know it's not the actor's fault. But at the same time, look, we're going to speak on how their characters came through. So yeah, Kristen Wiig, as the awkward girl, it was awkward, but not in the way they intended. Definitely got on a limb on that. And as you said, even as a villain later on, the transformation, she came through, like, there was almost a certain level of uncomfortability that's coming through when you portray either side of, that cheetah persona. And to emphasize that whole storytelling thing, it's like, what did they give her to work with in terms of the characters she was engaging with, or the storyline that she had in order to try to, boost her character, so to speak? I don't think there was anything meaty or worthwhile.
Yeah, so that's where I think they also fell into the trap. They did the two villain thing, and
it was
by doing two villains, you split the time.
Yeah.
And
it was grossly mismanaged.
Yeah, neither of them got enough time to,
I don't even know if we can immediately say who was the A and B villain, because if you think about it, Pedro's character, Max Lord, he's the guy who influences everything that happens, but we saw more of the cheetah, but on either side we didn't feel satisfied, so it gets very hard to try but yeah, that's what they put in. They put things, okay, there are two villains, both of them just completely failed. And even as far as what you want, again, it's not always about the villain per se, it's more about the fighting philosophies and that sort of thing. And be careful what you wish for. I'm not saying it's a horrible idea to go with, but the execution,
we've seen it multiple times where it just hasn't.
The execution here, I don't think it came through properly. And let's see, in terms of the characters, other people, I think those are pretty much.
Pascal, I guess.
Pedro, I think we've already touched on as far as
Kristen Wiig, and then the two leads.
The two leads, everyone else
like side ancillary characters that play into the story.
So I was certainly unimpressed with what we got from the characters, and again, even digging into the story itself. I mean, I've spoken about how my father just dragged on. It was unnecessarily long, and I don't know if there's actually any moments, because there's so much negative to say. Maybe let's just try and see if we can shoot them some sort of bait. I don't know if it's a matter of the costumes, that new golden one, which
that was pretty cool. But also, I don't know what bearing it had on the story.
That's my thing, right?
Or they did the invisible plane, which is, it's one of her things.
Yeah.
Which was nice, but it's an invisible plane, so you can't really see what's going on.
I don't know if also it belonged in this world, especially because by their own admission in the story, we've got radar today. So even if they can't visibly see you, the machines can detect you. So the visibility,
her godly powers can hide from radar. Apparently.
I wasn't too much of a fan of that.
I would have liked more backstory with the gods. You had Ares. I would have liked another god.
Because remember, they said that there's various gods. Obviously, they world consists of gods, and this
I
artifact
would have liked was made by the gods. So I would have liked to
exactly
see
as a backstory. You know, if you want to do something that first 20 minutes, whatever,
show us
that
the wisdom,
down.
yeah.
You know, yes, show us the creation of it or the backstory of the god
or
itself.
civilization falling apart.
Yes, as a result of the trickery behind that, like the bring the law to life and show us the destruction that was caused by this back then. Because remember, there was that research where they say, oh, the Mayans called it this, these people called it that, but this thing has been traveling through time and civilization. Even if it's not the origin, just something in the past as far as this is how much damage this thing can cause. And then you can, you know, fast forward, you could do a mixed narrative. It doesn't have to be at the very beginning, but at some point, go back and show us, oh damn, this thing has been causing trouble. Just, that's a way of adding some meatiness and to, you know, I don't know, man, validity, bring some validity to the story that you're trying to bring to us. Because I think, just keeping that whole thing modern, especially for such a crazy concept. Here's the thing, right? In the first movie, the concept was Ares, god of war.
Yeah.
But in terms of the manifestation of the power, if you want to put it that way, it was the actual world war. That's as clear as day. You don't need to break it down and whatever. Like you saw the famine, the distraction of the families, and you know the battlefield, all the things that came along with that. So we understand the magnitude of the power of this thing. But to say, don't you wish we had more help? Ah, I do. Hey, I'm here to apply for a job, la la la. Nah, we needed something else to emphasize the power and magnitude of this thing. That's
okay, maybe not magnitude because they did show like the scale, like the wall just coming up.
But for me, that wasn't enough. Maybe something from back then could have hit that note a little harder. Is basically what I'm speaking to.
Like change history in your favor. You got your creative license.
Exactly. So yeah, man. Definitely was not a fan of that. That new costume, look, the design is cool, like the golden thing and whatever. Here's my assumption as far as why it became important. Remember Diana, because the whole thing about this, be careful what you wish for, that with this artifact, you get your wish granted by the costume that you value the most. Of course, with Diana, that's her powers, hence her becoming weaker as she goes along.
It's kind of weird though.
If they kind of drove it home in some other fashion that, okay, she's getting weaker, this thing is going to help to like make up for the strength that she's lost. I don't know how exactly, but you will say it's a godly thing, whatever. But I don't think they drove it there. It almost felt like, oh, new costume, da, 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 da. And I'm like,
But I mean, it's, as you say, the new costume is probably just put in there for marketing purposes.
They do that all the time.
Yeah.
But you need to justify it to us in the context of the movie, is all I would ever ask people to do, filmmakers anyway. So I like the look of the costume, just not necessarily, how they put it
Fit into the story, yeah.
The invisible plate thing, I think I've already said, look, it's a cool power, but maybe if you had done it in a different manner, even something as basic as the whole thing about the coffee cup and the disappearance, that maybe could have been interesting if everything else had tied together as well. Because with the current story, that scene would have made it way too goofy. So it needed to be, done properly and placed properly. But I think could have been interesting to see. But yeah, I don't care too much about the power of it. So I think the lasso was way cooler. And even that, remember they showed the power of the lasso in a more fun and pleasant manner in the first movie. But yeah, man. So that's the other thing, right? Which is sometimes what people tend to do, for better or for worse, when it comes to the sequels. They'll redo the first movie, but just with a different villain, different time setting and whatever. The point being trying to hit the same note. Sometimes it works, sometimes not really. They didn't even try that with this one, like it literally felt like a whole new team came in to do this. But yeah, I don't know, man. Unless there's any other, middle parts that you wanna emphasize. For me, I think the ending also. I'm pretty much ready to just jump into that.
Yeah, it's not much. I mean, as you say, it's a lot of fluff, not too much meat. So yeah, we can chat about the ending. That way,
ending
Max
for
is.
Me, that's like the end, and maybe even before then, with the whole the thing with
saying goodbye.
Cheetah, Kristen Wiig, the goodbye thing also. It's like, Steve, and then he just goes and walks off. I'm like, man. Everything about look,
it's cheesy.
Exactly. Thank you. Well put. Because I was almost gonna apologize for my demeanor, but
cheesy only for rom-coms, not for
exactly.
multi-million-dollar.
I don't mind a good serving of cheese, but it has to, time and place rather. Time and place. This was neither for that. And so she's just like, I'm renouncing my wish, and then he just walking off.
Even just renouncing your wish, it can't be that easy.
It seemed too stupid. In as much as you got your wish by saying what it is or whatever, but like I feel like in order to reverse it, I renounced my wish. That was just no, man.
The stakes weren't high enough.
Yeah, it felt a little lazy. But when I touch on Kristen Wiig's death, for me,
she didn't die.
But just that scene, man, with like the electrocution and so that I just like how they kind of went with it instead of we're gonna tiptoe. I like how they just
that's the one dark element in a light-hearted movie, I guess.
Yes, but it was well placed.
Probably one of the highlights.
So I definitely enjoyed it, and just her, because again, everyone else, I renounce my wish, I want this. She's like, man, I love this thing, and I'm gonna hold on to it every fiber of my being, So her just sticking to her guns, because it would have seemed very convenient as it did with everyone else. Just okay, fine, I give up, I renounce. But she's like, no, I can see the downsides, but it's like that's classic addiction, basically.
Yeah.
She displayed it to the fullest, and it made complete sense for her character. If you consider where she came from, where she is now, and how it makes her feel, in spite of how she looked, because she looked like a mess. I did not like the character design of trying to make her like an actual cheetah.
Well, I mean, that's how it is, but I think the grey, I don't know why it was grey.
That's what I'm saying, man. Like
the color was off for me.
And it's almost like an inconsistency in terms of the world that they're trying to establish. Because remember, this is a world where, yes, there's superpowers, there's fantastical elements and all that, but like for someone to have like actual human traits and characteristics, it's like all she wanted was to be like Diana. How does that make her like Diana? Yes, I know the original character, but like you obviously can pick and choose what elements you're gonna, adopt for the movie. So the character design was pretty weird, but I do like her just saying, hey man, I'm gonna go down swinging. Shock me, kill me, or try to, if you will. But I enjoyed that part. And then, as far as the rest of the world trying to renounce their wish, because at the same time, in a similar manner to how I've always felt about this, Steve Trevor reincarnation, if you will, she makes a wish, he embodies someone else's, physique, still looks like that guy. But somehow Diana becomes convinced that, the spirit is in this dude. And I'm like, if someone comes up to me and tells me all my childhood secrets and what I've done, and then say, trust me, dude, I'm that person. Remember we did 1, 2, 3. And I'm like, but you look nothing like that person. Like, nah. And all of a sudden, Steve, it is you. I'm like, come on, man. Come on. They should have made him work a little harder at it.
A lot of the parts of this movie they dipped their toe in, but they didn't jump in.
You know what they did? They made it as well, after every one of those elements, look at the screen and gone like, just trust me, bro. Just trust me. Like, just go with it. And I'm like, I can only give you that so many times, man.
Yeah.
Like, you gotta work with me, you gotta work with me. So in a similar vein to that, when it comes to then having to renounce your wish, because here's the thing, when you want something, I mean, even now, if I'm like, oh man, I wish I had $1 million, it can flow easily because it's a thing I want for real, and you can't doubt that anyone has thought about why they want whatever it is that they want. Because if I'm like, I want $1 million, anyone can understand wanting that, or just the fact that you want more money, right?
Okay.
On the flip side, when it comes to it, if I didn't have that money, and it's not a matter of the government coming to me and saying, no, this was mistakenly deposited into your bank account, we need to get it back, or like something legit, someone just saying morally, like, no, it's not okay for you to have that much in your account. You need to give that money back. Do you think I'm just gonna be like, all right, I renounce it? No, dog. I'm gonna, even if that money is leading to my self-destruction, hey, if I'm now, I don't know, man, drinking myself to sleep every night, like partying and doing all sorts of weird and crazy things as a result of the money, I don't think it'll be that easy for me to be like, nah. It's more a matter of, no, I'm gonna do better. I'm gonna like, it's a struggle, is my point. I don't know if people struggled like that. They'll try and show one or two maybe struggling, but for the most part, just because a guy is, doing a live stream, shout out TikTok or whatever the hell, just because a guy is doing a live stream and then somebody saying, no, you guys have to renounce your wish, and remember, this is Wonder Woman saying it, but what does Wonder Woman mean to the world? Remember, she's not out there as
she's there,
she
but
does
she isn't there.
and they don't know it's her.
But
She's talking from the side.
But she ain't no Superman, you know what I mean?
Exactly. Like, she doesn't have that. That's another thing. They didn't really establish that attachment between her and the people, in spite of the decades that has passed.
I mean, the first robbery scene.
But I mean, as far as the world,
in terms of the grandiose,
she's almost a local hero, so to speak, right? But now that broadcasting is to the entire world to say, hey.
Yeah. So in terms of the world, there's no connection.
That's my thing. So the point is, what's the incentive for people to listen to her when she's
like, now, if this movie was set after Batman versus Superman,
yes,
that would have made more sense.
When it was
people know
on a world scale, people are like,
or after Justice League,
and we trust you. You saved us as a planet. Now, okay, we're gonna believe you. So that's my thing. The motivation, again, I don't think was established right enough. And then, not to mention, we renounce it. There's a whole collapse. What now? Are we just moving on automatically?
For me as well, the warheads were in the sky, and you announced they just disappeared.
So that's the other thing, right?
Then if you're announcing everything else, you just turn back to normal.
When I spoke about establishing the world of a particular superhero, it's like, okay, are we like fully mythical? Are we partially mythical? Like, I feel like even they aren't so clear about where they are drawing all those particular lines. Because as you say, why are the warheads disappearing, but everything else, the cows were just there, like outside by the capital or where the hell, and they didn't go back.
Yeah.
So,
but the warheads disappeared.
Yeah, man, they were very inconsistent with their own rules that they had established. So, and I mean, this has been peppered throughout the entire thing. So I think as a result, I was not a fan of this. I was insanely disappointed. Look, it's not the first sophomore slump, but the reason why this one is particularly painful is because of how high the standard was set. Yeah. So the extent of the fall off was just too great for us to be like, but you win some, you lose some. Like, nah, man, it was just too much. I had such high hopes, going in for it. I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to just point out, or have you taken enough of a dump on this? So
I'm tired of this movie. I gave it enough time now.
I think, man.
Now, if you want to go to ratings, I'm happy to go to ratings.
We'll get into it in a second. But what I'm curious about.
You've got more to say now.
No. This is now just opening the platform where this is concerned. That I'm curious to what extent do others share this sentiment. So as usual, man, we always like to engage and just receive comments, and also with this one, really
specific,
more so than the others.
Yeah.
We definitely would like to know.
Are we way off base here?
Yeah, are we being harsh? Are we? Because for the most part, we like this. And what I will say I like about us not liking this is the fact that it becomes clear that we're gonna keep it 100, man. If we like something, we like something. If we don't, we don't. Simple as that. So I'll be very, very interested to see to what extent our viewers resonate with this. But with that said, I think let's get then into our rating out of 10. What are you gonna give this one?
I think it's just gotten less and less over time.
Yes, exactly.
Considering we have done this before. I think just to peek behind the curtain a little bit more, I think it was like a 4 last time.
And before then, it was like a 5 or 6.
5.5. But now probably like a 3.
Yeah.
3, like it'll pass in South Africa, but it won't.
Won't mean much.
You won't get into university.
Nah, man. I actually agree with the 3 itself.
Because it's not a rewatchable movie.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
Every time you watch it,
yes,
it's just
Because that's a mark of a great movie. I mean, we speak a lot about we watched this a few years back and now I watch it again. Some of them will be a matter of I watched it last year, but you're watching it again. It gets you really excited. You pick up on new things, and So the fact that this one goes in a complete other direction, where it's like once is more than enough. You don't even need to, go back to it and that sort of thing. The more you watch it, the more you realize exactly how bad it has become, as opposed to saying, I was overly harsh. So I think without a doubt, definitely a 3 out of 10. And I mean, just for the sake of, routine and all of that, we'll mention, our rankings, because thus far is just Wonder Woman 1 and this one that we have in this, series. But needless to say, this is not only second, it's just far down the list. And then Wonder Woman 1 is number 1. I think that's probably a better way of
first
of
and
putting it.
last.
Yeah. That's probably the best way to put this. And the bigger shame is the fact that it's the last iteration, by Gal Gadot and this team and all of that, because
the characters,
if they bring it back, it's going to be, a whole new regime behind it. But yeah, that's just is what it is.
Yeah.
And that pretty much then brings us to the end of our review. As mentioned, let us know what your take on this is. If you haven't yet, definitely connect, hit that subscribe button for us, hit us up, Instagram, we also got a presence there, the Fighter and Geek Zone.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, that's pretty much it from our side. We'll then catch you at the next review, which is going to be Man of Steel. It's going to be a dope one. Definitely make sure to check it out when it drops. Till then,
Yeah.
peace.
Peace, guys.